I got released from prison after 10 years, and my son asked, "Are you the man from the photos?" I stood on the front porch holding a plastic bag with my belongings, staring at the 12-year-old boy who answered the door. He had my eyes and my mother's chin, but everything else was unfamiliar. My voice came out rough. "Ethan, it's me. It's your dad." He stepped back and called over his shoulder, "Mom, there's a man here who says he's my dad." His hand was on the door, ready to slam it. My ex-wife Diane appeared behind him, and her face went white. "Vincent, you're early. They said next month." Before I could respond, a man appeared behind her, tall and protective. "Honey, what's wrong?" He saw me, and his expression hardened. "Who the hell are you?" The words hit like a fist. "I'm her husband." The man stepped forward. "David Morrison died in prison 3 months ago. There was a memorial service, so I don't know who you are, but you need to leave before I call the police." My stomach dropped. David Morrison. That was my cellmate's name. "What are you talking about?" "I'm Vincent Cross. I just got released this morning." Diane's face shifted from shock to something else. Fear. Real, genuine fear. She grabbed Ethan and pulled him behind her. "Vincent died. They called me, sent me his personal effects. I buried him." Her voice was shaking, but there was calculation in her eyes I recognized from our marriage. She was lying. I could see it in the way she wouldn't meet my gaze directly, in the way her hand tightened on Ethan's shoulder. "Diane, what the hell is going on? I've been calling the number I had, but it was disconnected. Why would you tell him I'm dead?" The man, who I now realized was living in my house with my family, pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the cops. Identity theft, harassment, whatever this is." Ethan was staring at me with wide eyes. "Are you really my dad? Mom showed me photos, but you look different." I pulled out my release papers, my ID, everything I had. "Look at these. I'm Vincent Cross. I was released this morning from Millbrook Correctional. I served 10 years for vehicular manslaughter. I don't know what you were told, but I'm alive, and I just want to see my son." Diane's face was doing something strange, cycling through emotions too fast. The man looked at my documents and his expression changed. "These look legitimate." He turned to Diane. "Honey, what's happening here?" She was breathing fast now, almost hyperventilating. "I got a call from the prison. They said Vincent died, complications from an infection. They sent me a death certificate, his wedding ring, his watch. I held a memorial service. I buried an urn with his ashes." Her voice was getting higher, more panicked, but I saw something underneath. She was performing. "Diane!" My voice was cold. "Where's the death certificate?" She flinched. "Inside. I'll get it." She disappeared into the house, leaving me on the porch with this man and my son who didn't know me. The man extended his hand hesitantly. "Austin Bennett. I've been with Diane for 3 years. She told me her husband died in prison and she needed help with Ethan. I moved in about 2 years ago. 3 years. So she'd started this relationship while I was still inside, still very much alive." Ethan was still staring at me. "Do you know how to play soccer?" The random question caught me off guard. "Yeah, buddy. I played in high school." He nodded slowly. "Mom said my dad was good at soccer. That's one of the only things she ever told me about you." Diane returned with a folder and pulled out a document. It was a death certificate with my name on it, dated 3 months ago. Cause of death listed as septic shock from untreated infection. Signed by a Dr. Raymond Hughes at Millbrook Medical Unit. I stared at it, my hands shaking. "This is fake. I was never sick. I was in Gen Pop the whole time until my release this morning. Dr. Hughes is real, but he never treated me for anything serious." Austin took the certificate and examined it carefully. "This looks official. State seal, proper signatures, everything." He pulled out his phone and started searching. "But if you're alive and these release papers are real, then someone went through a lot of trouble to fake your death." Diane was crying now, her whole body shaking. "I don't understand. They called me. A woman from the prison. She said you died and they were shipping your body to the county morgue. I went there. I saw the body." My blood went cold. "You saw a body? You identified it as me?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "They said you'd been sick for weeks, and by the time they found you it was too late. The body was. It was badly decomposed, but it was your height, your build. They had your prison ID. I thought it was you." Austin's face was grim. "This is way above our pay grade. We need to call the police and figure out what's happening here." But I was putting pieces together, pieces that made me sick. "Diane, when did they call you about my death?" She wiped her eyes. "March 15th, about 2 in the afternoon. March 15th. That was the day my cellmate David Morrison actually died. He'd been sick for weeks, and the medical unit had ignored it until it was too late. He'd been about my height and build." "Diane, you didn't identify me. You identified David Morrison, my cellmate. He died on March 15th from an infection they didn't treat, but someone told you it was me." Her face went even paler. "Why would someone do that? Why would they tell me you were dead if you weren't?" I looked at her carefully, at the fear and confusion that seemed real, but had layers underneath I didn't trust. "That's what I want to know. Who benefits from me being declared dead?" Austin's phone rang, and he stepped away to answer it, leaving me with Diane and Ethan. My son was still watching me with those careful, evaluating eyes. "If you're really my dad, tell me something only he would know." I thought fast. "You have a birthmark on your left shoulder blade shaped like a crescent moon. You were allergic to strawberries and we found out when you were 2 and your face swelled up. Your favorite stuffed animal was a blue elephant named Trunks that you carried everywhere until you were 4. Ethan's eyes got wide. "Mom never told me about the elephant. I forgot about him until just now." He took a step toward me, then stopped, uncertain. Diane put her hand on his shoulder. Baby, go inside. The adults need to talk. He looked like he wanted to argue, but went, glancing back at me from the doorway. Austin came back, his face serious. That was a buddy of mine who works in corrections. He's going to make some calls, see what he can find out about the death certificate and what happened at Millbrook on March 15th. He looked at me. Until we sort this out, you should probably stay somewhere else. Diane and Ethan need time to process this, and we need to verify everything. I picked up my plastic bag. I don't have anywhere else to go. They set me up with an apartment, but I don't have keys yet. Wasn't supposed to get them until next week since they thought I was being released then. Diane pulled out her phone, not looking at me. I'll call the parole office. Get them to expedite your housing. Her voice was flat, controlled again. The crying had stopped like she'd flipped a switch. Austin watched her with an expression I couldn't read. There's a motel about 2 miles from here. I'll drive you and pay for a few nights until this gets sorted. It was generous, but I saw the calculation behind it. He wanted me away from Diane and Ethan until he understood what was happening. We drove in silence to a rundown motel that had seen better decades. Austin paid for 3 nights with cash and handed me the key. My friend is going to dig into this. If someone faked your death, we need to know who and why. He paused at the door. Diane's been through a lot, raising Ethan alone, dealing with the grief. If this is some kind of scam or identity theft situation, I need to know. I met his eyes. I'm not scamming anyone. I'm Vincent Cross. That's my son, and someone made my family think I was dead. I intend to find out who. The motel room smelled like mold and cigarettes. I sat on the bed and tried to process what had happened. Someone had used David Morrison's death to declare me dead. Someone had called Diane and convinced her to identify a decomposed body as mine. Someone had filed official paperwork with the state. This wasn't a clerical error or a mix-up. This was deliberate. My phone, a cheap prepaid the prison had given me, buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Stay away from your family. You're dead, and you need to stay that way. Next time won't be a warning. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. Someone was threatening me within hours of my release. Someone who knew I'd gone to see Diane and Ethan. Someone who was watching. I took a screenshot and called the number Austin had given me for his corrections friend. It rang 4 times before a gruff voice answered. Yeah? I explained the situation quickly, sent him the screenshot. He was quiet for a long moment. Vincent Cross. Yeah, I remember you. David Morrison was your cellie. This is bad, man. Really bad. Someone with access to prison systems and the morgue set this up. I'm looking into it, but you need to watch your back. I hung up and looked at the door, suddenly aware of how vulnerable I was. 10 years inside had taught me to be paranoid, and right now, paranoia felt justified. I wedged the chair under the door handle and tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every sound outside made me tense. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo. Diane and Ethan, taken through their living room window within the last few hours based on what they were wearing. The message below said, "Your death protects them. Stay dead." I was up and pacing, my heart pounding. Whoever was behind this was threatening my family, not me, them. That meant whatever this was about, Diane and Ethan were in danger if I kept pushing. But backing off meant abandoning my son again, and I'd spent 10 years promising myself I wouldn't do that. At 6 in the morning, Austin called. My friend found something. Can you meet us at Diane's house? We need to talk. I took a rideshare to the house, and Austin let me in with a grim expression. Diane was at the kitchen table with Ethan upstairs, and Austin's friend, a corrections officer named Isaac Valdez, was with them. Isaac spread out papers on the table. Vincent, someone accessed your prison file 3 weeks before David Morrison died. They made changes to your medical records, created a paper trail showing you were seriously ill. Then when Morrison died, they falsified documents identifying him as you. The death certificate was filed by someone in the medical examiner's office using legitimate credentials. He pulled up more documents. But here's where it gets interesting. The same day your death was officially recorded, someone filed a life insurance claim. A big one. $750,000 paid out to your beneficiary. He looked at Diane. That would be you. Diane's face went white. I never filed a life insurance claim. I didn't even know Vincent had life insurance. Isaac nodded. That's because you didn't file it. Someone else did, using your information. The money was deposited into an account at First National Bank under your name, but you never set up that account. He showed her banking records. Over the past 3 months, $400,000 has been withdrawn from that account in cash and wire transfers to offshore accounts. Someone used your identity to steal the insurance money. Diane was shaking. I don't understand. Why would someone fake Vincent's death and steal money using my name? I was putting it together, pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. To frame you, whoever did this wanted the insurance money, but they also wanted someone to blame if it got investigated. They faked my death, filed the claim in your name, and made it look like you were behind it. Isaac pulled out more documents. There's more. The phone call Diane received about Vincent's death, it came from a burner phone purchased in this county. The woman who called claimed to be from the prison, but there's no record of anyone from Millbrook calling Diane that day. Someone impersonated a prison official. Austin was looking at Diane with growing concern. Who would have access to all this information? Prison records, medical examiner credentials, your personal details? Diane's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. I can't think of anyone who would, but I saw something flicker across her face. Recognition, maybe, or fear. I leaned forward. Diane, If you know something, you need to tell us. Whoever did this is threatening our family. They sent me photos of you and Ethan taken last night through your window. Her head snapped up. What? I showed her the messages, and she grabbed the phone with shaking hands. Austin's face went hard. We need to call the police. This is way beyond what we can handle. But Diane was staring at the photo, her face going through emotions I couldn't read. Finally, she looked at Isaac. Can you give us a minute? I need to talk to Vincent and Austin alone. Isaac gathered his papers and stepped outside. Diane waited until the door closed before she spoke. 3 years ago, I started getting calls from someone who said they worked at the prison, a woman. She'd tell me things about Vincent, how he was doing, what he was up to, information I couldn't get any other way because Vincent had stopped accepting my calls. I remembered that. I'd stopped taking her calls after the first year because hearing her voice made everything harder. This woman, she became like a friend. She'd give me updates, tell me Vincent was staying out of trouble, doing well. After a while, she started asking me questions about our marriage, our finances, insurance policies. Austin's jaw tightened. And you answered her? Gave her personal information? Diane's eyes filled with tears. She seemed to care. She was helping me stay connected to Vincent when he wouldn't talk to me. I didn't think. I was lonely and scared, and she was the only person who seemed to understand. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through old messages. She gave me a number to text if I needed anything. I haven't heard from her in 6 months, not since right before Vincent was supposedly died. She showed us the message thread. The number was disconnected now, but the messages were there. Personal information, financial details, insurance policy numbers, everything someone would need to set up this scheme. Isaac came back in, having heard enough through the thin walls. We need to trace this number, find out who this woman is. He took Diane's phone and started making calls. I looked at Diane, seeing her differently now. She'd been lonely and manipulated, used by someone who'd planned this for years. Did she ever tell you her name? Diane nodded. Rachel Montgomery. She said she worked in prisoner services. Isaac got off the phone, his face grim. There's no Rachel Montgomery employed at Millbrook or any facility in the state system, but the number she texted from was used to make several other calls. One to the medical examiner's office the day before Morrison's body was identified, one to First National Bank the day the insurance claim was filed, and one to a private investigator's office downtown. He looked at us. Whoever Rachel is, she's not just some random scammer. She's connected, professional, and she's been planning this for a long time. Austin stood up and started pacing. Why, though? If the goal was just to steal insurance money, why not keep Vincent alive and make it cleaner? Why fake his death and create this whole elaborate scheme? I had an idea, one that made my skin crawl. Because someone wanted me dead for real. The insurance money was secondary. Someone wanted to use Morrison's death as an opportunity to eliminate me. And when that didn't work because I was released early, they're trying to scare me into disappearing. Isaac's phone rang, and he stepped away to answer. When he came back, his face was ashen. That was the warden at Millbrook, Dr. Raymond Hughes, the physician who supposedly signed Vincent's death certificate. He was found dead in his home this morning, apparent suicide. Left a note confessing to falsifying medical records and death certificates for money. The room went cold. Diane grabbed my arm. They're cleaning up loose ends. They killed him to cover their tracks. Isaac nodded. Which means anyone connected to this is in danger, including all of you. He looked at me. Vincent, you need protection. Police custody might be the safest place until we figure out who's behind this. But I shook my head. If I go into police custody, whoever's doing this will know they've won. I'll be locked away, cut off from my family again. That's what they want. Austin spoke up. Then we need to go on offense. Find Rachel Montgomery or whoever she really is before she finds us. Ethan appeared at the top of the stairs, having heard everything. Is someone trying to hurt us? His voice was small and scared. Diane rushed to him, but he was looking at me. Is it because you came back? Because you're not really dead? I climbed the stairs slowly and knelt in front of him. Yeah, buddy. Someone did some bad things, and now they're upset that I'm still alive. But I promise you, I'm not going to let anyone hurt you or your mom. He studied my face with those careful eyes. Are you going to leave again? To keep us safe? The question broke something in my chest. No, I'm not leaving. We're going to fix this together. He surprised me by hugging me, quick and fierce. Good, because I just got a dad. I don't want to lose him again. Diane was crying silently, and Austin looked torn between protecting his family and figuring out how to do that. Isaac's phone rang again. He answered, listened, and his face went pale. We have a problem. The insurance company just flagged the $750,000 claim as fraudulent. They're filing charges against Diane for insurance fraud and identity theft. Diane grabbed the table. What? But I didn't do anything. Isaac held up his hand. I know, but on paper, you're the beneficiary who filed the claim and withdrew the money. They don't know about Rachel Montgomery or the fake death certificate yet. Right now, all the evidence points to you. This was the frame-up, the real trap. Whoever Rachel was, she'd set it up so Diane would take the fall for everything. If Diane went to prison for fraud, Ethan would be left vulnerable, and I'd be seen as the victim of my ex-wife's scheme, easily pushed aside. Austin's voice was hard. We need a lawyer, a good one, and we need to find Rachel Montgomery before the police arrest Diane. Isaac pulled out a business card. I know someone, former FBI, now works private sector. She specializes in complex fraud cases. Let me make a call. While Isaac was calling, I looked at the papers spread across the table. Something wasn't adding up. The insurance policy. When was it taken out? Diane pulled out the original policy document. 2 years after you went in. Your parole officer said it was standard. that the prison recommended it. I paid the premiums monthly from our joint account. I stared at the document. Who sold you the policy? She checked the paperwork. An agent from Secure Life Insurance. Woman named Rachel Montgomery. Everything clicked into place. Rachel hadn't just used an existing policy. She'd sold Diane the policy specifically for this scam. She'd been planning this for 8 years, slowly building the relationship, gathering information, setting up the infrastructure. When David Morrison got sick, she'd seen her opportunity. We need to find out who Rachel Montgomery really is, I said. Her real identity, her background, why she targeted us specifically. Isaac's call connected, and he put it on speaker. A woman's voice came through, professional and sharp. Isaac Valdez, it's been a minute. What do you need? Isaac explained the situation quickly while the woman, Agent Patricia Cole, listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Send me everything you have. Photos, documents, message threads, all of it. I'll start digging. But Vincent Cross, you need to hear this clearly. If someone went to this much trouble to fake your death, they won't stop just because you're alive. They'll try again, and next time, they might not use paperwork. We spent the next 2 hours at Diane's kitchen table, going through everything. Cole worked fast, pulling records and making connections we'd missed. Around noon, she called back. I found her. Rachel Montgomery is an alias for Rachel Brennan, former insurance fraud investigator who was fired 5 years ago for taking kickbacks from a scam ring. She's been operating under multiple identities, running long-term cons targeting vulnerable people. But here's the interesting part. She has a partner, someone with access to prison systems and law enforcement databases. I'm still tracking that person, but I have Rachel's last known address. It's local, about 40 minutes from you. Isaac stood up. We need to call the police. Let them handle it. But Cole's voice cut through. The police will take days to get a warrant and coordinate. By then, Rachel will be gone, and any evidence destroyed. You want to catch her? You go now, and you go quiet. Austin looked at me. This is insane. We're not trained for this. I grabbed my jacket. I've spent 10 years learning to handle dangerous situations. I'm going. The rest of you stay here with Ethan. Diane shook her head. No, this is my identity she used. My life she destroyed. I'm coming. Austin looked between us, then grabbed his keys. Fine, but we do this smart. We get evidence, we get answers, and we get out. No heroics. Isaac called in sick to work and drove us to the address Cole provided. It was a suburban house in a nice neighborhood, the kind of place you'd never suspect of harboring a criminal. We parked down the street and watched. No movement inside, no cars in the driveway. Cole had texted us photos of Rachel Brennan, mid-40s, blonde hair, average height. She looked like someone's aunt, completely unremarkable. Isaac pulled out his phone. Cole sent me blueprints for the house. 2 entrances, basement exit. We need to cover all points. We split up. Austin and Isaac took the back, while Diane and I approached the front. My heart was pounding, adrenaline making everything sharp and clear. We'd just reached the porch when the front door opened and a woman appeared. Rachel Brennan, exactly like her photos. She saw us and froze. Vincent Cross, you're supposed to be dead. Before anyone could react, Rachel pulled a gun from her jacket pocket and fired. The shot went wide, shattering a window behind us. Diane screamed and we hit the ground. Rachel ran back inside, slamming the door. Austin and Isaac came running from the back, and we regrouped at the street. Isaac was on his phone calling the police while Austin checked us for injuries. Are you hit? Diane was shaking but unharmed. No, we're okay. I looked at the house, my mind racing. Rachel was trapped inside, but she was armed and desperate. Police would take at least 10 minutes to arrive. In that time, she could destroy evidence or escape through a route we didn't know about. Isaac finished his call. Cops are coming. We need to wait. But I saw movement at a side window. Rachel, climbing out with a laptop bag and file box. She was running. I took off after her before anyone could stop me, my prison conditioning kicking in. She ran toward a wooded area behind the houses, moving fast for someone carrying evidence. I was faster. 10 years of prison workouts had kept me fit, and fighting had kept me alert. I caught up to her at the tree line and tackled her to the ground. The laptop bag flew open, documents scattering. Rachel fought like she'd been trained, throwing elbows and trying to gouge my eyes. But I'd survived a decade in maximum security. I pinned her arms and yelled for the others. Austin reached us first, helping me restrain her while Isaac gathered the scattered documents. Diane picked up the laptop. Rachel was screaming that we were assaulting her, that she'd press charges, but her voice lost conviction when police sirens echoed in the distance. 2 patrol cars pulled up, and officers approached with weapons drawn, ordering everyone to the ground. We complied while Isaac flashed his corrections ID and explained. One officer handcuffed Rachel while the other took our statements. The lead officer, Sergeant Mills, looked at the documents Isaac had collected. This is evidence in an active investigation. We need to secure it properly. Isaac handed everything over. There's more inside the house. Rachel Brennan has been running an insurance fraud ring, and she tried to fake this man's death to collect a payout. Mills radioed for backup and crime scene investigators. Rachel was placed in a patrol car, still screaming about her rights. Cole showed up 30 minutes later with 2 federal agents. She'd been monitoring the situation and decided to take over. Insurance fraud across state lines makes this federal. We're taking custody of the suspect and all evidence. The agents spent 3 hours processing Rachel's house. They found servers full of data, files on dozens of victims, evidence of a fraud ring that had been operating for over a decade. Rachel had been the face of it, building relationships with vulnerable targets and gathering information. But she had partners, and those partners were what made this dangerous. Cole pulled me aside as the sun was setting. Rachel's talking. trying to cut a deal. She gave up her partner. You're not going to like this. She showed me a photo on her tablet, a woman in a corrections uniform. Deputy Warden Linda Holloway from Millbrook. She'd been providing Rachel with access to prisoner records, inmate information, anything needed to run the scams. They'd been using deaths in custody to fake insurance claims for years. David Morrison was just the latest victim. Linda Holloway knew I was being released early, I said, understanding, crystallizing. She knew the fake death certificate wouldn't hold up once I walked out. That's why she sent me those threatening messages. She was trying to scare me into disappearing before anyone discovered what they'd done. Cole nodded. We've got agents at Millbrook right now arresting her. But Vincent, you need to understand something. Holloway has connections throughout law enforcement. She's been feeding information to criminal networks for years. There might be people who want to silence you permanently to protect themselves. I looked back at Diane and Ethan, who were giving statements to local police. What do I do? Cole considered. Witness protection is an option. New identity, new location for you and your family. But that meant running again, disappearing, taking Ethan away from Austin and the life he'd built. No, I spent 10 years in prison and someone tried to steal another 10 years by faking my death. I'm not running. Cole respected that. Then you stay visible. You tell your story publicly. You make it impossible for them to touch you without everyone knowing why. You become the worst possible target. That's what we did. Over the next 2 weeks, I gave interviews to every media outlet that would listen. I told the story of David Morrison's death being used to fake mine, of Rachel Brennan and Linda Holloway's fraud ring, of nearly losing my family again to a scheme I didn't even know about. The coverage was intense. Local news picked it up, then national. The insurance fraud case became a scandal when federal investigators discovered dozens of similar schemes throughout the prison system. Holloway had been using inmate deaths to generate fake life insurance claims for years, stealing millions. Rachel had been her partner, recruiting vulnerable family members like Diane and setting them up to take the fall if anything went wrong. Dr. Hughes, the medical examiner who'd supposedly committed suicide, was actually murdered by a third partner still being hunted. The entire system was exposed and torn apart. For Diane, the charges were dropped once her role as a victim became clear. The insurance company paid out a settlement for using her identity without consent. She used the money to set up a college fund for Ethan and donate to organizations helping families of incarcerated people. Ethan processed everything in therapy, working through the trauma of almost losing a father he'd just found. He asked me once if I was scared of going back to prison, if I thought they'd find a way to frame me. I told him honestly that I was terrified, but being scared didn't mean giving up. It meant being careful, being smart, and fighting for what mattered. 6 months after everything exploded, I finally got the apartment keys that had been delayed during the chaos. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Ethan came over that first night and we ordered pizza, sitting on my floor since I didn't have furniture yet. This place is kind of terrible, he said, looking around at the bare walls and old carpet. I laughed. Yeah, but it's better than a cell. He nodded, understanding more than a 12-year-old should. Are you going to get a TV? I hadn't thought that far ahead. Eventually. Why? He shrugged. So we can watch soccer games together. I have a tournament next month. Austin said you could come if you wanted. The casual inclusion of both me and Austin in his life, his ability to navigate the complex reality of having two father figures, amazed me. I'd like that. He smiled, and for a moment, he looked exactly like he had in the baby photos I'd kept in my cell. Good, because someone needs to explain the offside rule to Austin. He's terrible at understanding it. A year after my release, after everything had settled into a new normal, Ethan asked me a question that had clearly been weighing on him. We were at his soccer game and his team had just won. He was sweaty and happy, sitting next to me on the bleachers while Austin got drinks from the concession stand. Dad, do you think David Morrison had a family? Like, people who thought he was you when they buried him? The question hit hard because I'd been thinking about it too. Yeah, I think he did. I remember him talking about a daughter once. Ethan processed this. So somewhere, there's a girl who thought her dad died, then found out it wasn't even him they buried, and now she has to deal with everything all over again. He looked at me. That's really messed up. I agreed it was. Rachel and Holloway didn't just hurt us. They hurt a lot of families, but they're in prison now, and that's something. He nodded slowly. I'm glad you're not dead. Even though everything was scary and confusing, I'm glad I got to know you. I pulled him close. Me too, buddy. Me too. The story doesn't have a neat ending because life isn't neat. Diane and Austin got married, and I attended the wedding at their invitation. Ethan was their best man and gave a speech about family being complicated but worth fighting for. I got a better job, rebuilt relationships, stayed sober and focused. I testified at Rachel Brennan and Linda Holloway's trials, watching them get sentenced to decades in prison for fraud, conspiracy, and second-degree murder in Dr. Hughes' death. The third partner was never found, but I learned to live with that uncertainty. Some threats you can't eliminate, you just have to stay aware of. Ethan is 15 now and plays soccer like it's his future, which it might be. He splits time between Diane's house and my apartment, comfortable in both places. He calls me Dad without hesitation and Austin by his first name, having worked out his own system for navigating two father figures. We talk about everything now, the prison years, the fraud case, what it means to rebuild after losing everything. I tell him honestly about my struggles, my fears, the days when I want to give up. He tells me about school stress, girls, friend drama, All the normal teenage stuff that feels like a gift after everything. Last week, he asked if I'd teach him to drive when he turns 16. I said yes, knowing it was a promise that meant he trusted me with his future, not just his past. Later that night, sitting in my apartment that finally has furniture and a TV for watching soccer games, I thought about David Morrison, about how his death was used to try to erase me, how Rachel Brennan saw an opportunity and took it without thinking about the human cost. I thought about his daughter, whoever she is, dealing with the aftermath of having her father's death twisted into someone else's fraud. I donated to a victims fund in David's name and left flowers at his actual grave, which had finally been properly marked. It wasn't enough, but it was something. You don't get a second chance at life and squander it. You honor it by living as well as you can, by being present for the people who matter, by turning something terrible into something bearable. That's all any of us can do. The man from the photos that Ethan asked about that first day doesn't exist anymore. Prison changed me in ways I can't undo. But the man I am now, scarred and struggling but present and sober and fighting to be better, that's someone I can live with. And more importantly, that's someone my son can know and trust, and maybe even be proud of. That's worth more than anything Rachel Brennan tried to steal. Thanks for hanging out till the end. If you want more crazy Reddit stories, make sure to subscribe and leave your take below.